Okay, here we are with an explanation of the second Mishnah of the first chapter of Mesechet Kinim. The Mishnah says, "Chatas shenitarva be'ola, ve'ola bechatas, afidu echad beribo, yamutu kulam." The words are a chatas that gets mixed up with an ola, or an ola that gets mixed up with a chatas, even one in a large number such as 10,000, yamutu kulam, you leave them all to die. What is the logic of this? The logic of this is that you have something that you have to do with certainty, and you have an amount of uncertainty with it. So after we've gone through definitions and groups in the first Mishnah, the next thing we're coming to now is mixtures. And in mixtures you have to decide if there is a level of importance to the individual item which does not let it get cancelled in a large number. For example, if there is a huge vat of vitamin tablets, and there is a tablet of rat poison, which looks identical to the vitamin tablets, that accidentally falls into the vat of the vitamins. So what are you going to say? You're going to say, well, half of these vitamins are going to get returned to the factory because they weren't sold in the store and they're going to get trashed. And of the ones that are sold, everybody buys a bottle of vitamins, and the first few days they really take them every day, but after a while it just sits there on the shelf until it comes around Pesach and they get burnt with the chametz. So really only maybe 10-15% of all these tablets are going to get used. The chance that this rat poison tablet is going to get taken by somebody is so small that maybe I should just sell all this stuff. And you say no, because you risk that you might kill somebody with it, or seriously injure somebody with the tablet. This tablet is not cancelled in the vat. Had it been an ordinary sugar tablet, you say, okay, one day the guy misses his vitamin, what's the big deal? Okay, so the question that you ask, once you have definitions in groups, when you get to mixtures, is what's the level of significance that gets what's getting mixed in? If you can say batal b'shishim, it's 1 in 60 or 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000, whatever numbers is relevant, you can stop here. You don't have to go further in digging deeper into the logic of how do I resolve what the halach is, what the best practices is. But if you have to resolve it, if it has a level of significance which you can't ignore, then you have to go through the logic of it. So it says, in the simplest case, if a chatas gets mixed up with olas, even 1 in 10,000, or an ola gets mixed up with chatas, is even 1 in 10,000, there's no way that you can take one of these 10,001 birds and bring it to the altar and say, this for sure is the one that I have to put the blood above or below the line. Even though there's a large probability that it's from the large group and a very tiny probability that it's from the small group, I can't with certainty say which it is. Okay? So the simplest case that the Mishnah Bet brings us is chatas shenitarva be'ola ve'ola bechatas afidu echad beribo yamutu kulam. The next case is, so what about an individual with a group of individuals? What about an individual with a group? And this is the case of first reading the text. Chatas shenitarva becholva. Ein kosher edekaminim chatas shebecholva, v'kein ola shenitarva becholva. Ein kosher edekaminim ola becholva. Ben sha'cholva merubah v'hanedava memuetas, ben sha'nedava merubah v'hacholva memuetas, ben sheshneim shavot. Which says a chatas sin offering shenitarva becholva, which got mixed together with an obligatory group. Ein kosher, you can only use Eila haminin, the number of chatases, of sin offerings that were in the group, shebecholva. V'kein ola shenitarva becholva, and the same symmetrically, if an ola gets mixed up with an obligatory set, ein kosher edekaminim ola shebecholva. You can only use the number of olas that were in this cholva. And it doesn't matter, ben shehachova merubah v'nadav memuetas, it doesn't matter if the cholva group was very large and the ola group was very small. Ben shehanedavot merubah v'hacholva memuetas, if the ola group was very large and the obligatory group was very small. Ben sheshneim shavot, if both of them were the same size. Let's see the logic of how this works. Okay, so I have a chatas gets mixed up together with a ken chova. sin offering gets mixed up with an obligatory group. I now have 3 birds in a box. And I say, how many can I use and how do I use them that I'm not going to have any problem regarding their significance? So take 1 bird out. That bird is either the chattas that flew in or it's one of the chova birds. Those are the only 2 choices. If it's the chattas that flew in, I'm going to make it a chattas. And if it's one of the 2 obligatory birds, and I haven't yet said which is the chattas and which is the ola, only that there's a dependency between them. If one is going to be the chattas, then the other has to be the ola, and if one is going to be the ola, then the other has to be the chattas, then I can decide now, this is the chattas of the chova. So the first bird I take, and I make a chattas, number 1. Okay. Now let's try to take the second bird. If the first bird that I took was the chattas, all I have left in there is chova birds. And if the first bird that I took was the chova bird, then the second bird is either a chattas or it's the second bird of the chova bird. Those are the only 3 choices as to who the second bird can be. Now then, if this is the first bird of the chova, because I haven't, the only bird that I've taken out of here so far is the chattas bird. I don't know, but if that's what happened, then I can do with this whatever I want. I can make it a chattas or an ola. It doesn't give me any restriction as to how I'm going to use the second bird. If the first bird that I took was the chova, and I made it a chattas, and now I've taken out the chattas that flew in, for sure I have to make this a chattas. Now, the third case, if the first bird that I took was a chova, and I made it a chattas, and the second bird is also a chova, this one I have to make as an ola. So what's happened to me here is, in the second bird, for the second bird, there are 3 different cases as to who it can be. I have no identifying marks to tell me which is which. And according to one case, I can do whatever I want. According to one case, I have to make it a chattas, and according to one case, I have to make it an ola. That's as far as you can go. You can't take a second bird. Now, the other way of explaining this is to say, if I have 3 birds, if I take one of them out, it's, as we said, either the chattas that flew in or one of the chova. But if I take 2 birds out, it may be the second bird of the chova, or it may be the chattas that flew in. If it's the second bird of the chova, I have to make it an ola. Okay? So what the Mishnah has now told us is, let's say I have A number of chattases and B number of chova birds. So if I have 1 chattas flies into 1,000,000 chova birds, how many can I use? Well, I can use half of this number, 500,000 chova birds, and I can make them all chattases. If they're all from the group of chova, I'm okay. If one of them happens to be the chattas that flew in, I'm okay. If I try to use 500,000 plus 1, maybe it turns out that that plus 1 is the chattas that flew in which case I have to make it a chattas. But maybe all 500,000, or just that plus 1, is still from the chova. In which case, if I had used all of the chova birds, the 500,000 plus 1 bird, I now have to make an ola. So the rule is I can use half of this number, half B, and I use them according to what flew in. So let's try it again. I have 1,000,000 chattas birds, flies into 1 pair of chova birds. I take the first bird, I make it a chattas. I take the second bird, it might be that the first 2 birds are from the chova, in which case the second bird now has to be used as an ola. Or it might be that the second bird is one of those 1,000,000 chattases that flew in, I have to make it a chattas. How many birds can I use? Half of the number of the chova. How do I use them? According to what flew in. And likewise, the Mishnah tells us if it's an ola that flies into a chova, same rule. Half of the number of chova, use it according to an ola. Doesn't matter if A is bigger than B, if B is bigger than A, or if the 2 of them are equal. That's Mishnah 2.